father involvement. Children who grow up with involved fathers, it says 39% more likely to earn mostly A's in school, 45% less likely to repeat a grade, 60 times less likely to be suspended or expelled from school, 2 times likely to go to college and find stable employment after high school, 75% less likely to have a teen birth, and 80% less likely to spend time in jail. Now, that was just one figure that I saw. There was a bunch of different other ones out there with all statistics that's just coming from a secular group um, of kids that are growing up without a dad in their lives, or positives that dads bring to the table. Now, I'm not saying that you can't grow up to be a fine young dad in your life, but it sure does help. When I was coaching football a few years ago, there was a couple kids on my team whose dads were out of their lives, and um, I was able to kind of help them through some things, which is a good thing for us dads that um, are there for our kids to be able to step up and help out with other kids out there that don't necessarily have what our kids have. I know that um, there was a lot of those kids that it really meant a lot to them to have somebody for them. So I want to go ahead and show this link real quick, if it'll let me bring it up. I don't know if it will. Let's see. Shoot. All right. So this is the same website from the Coalition of Fathers, and I just thought it was. Oh, I'm sorry. This was from a group of biblical standpoint, and a lot of the stuff that I was finding that was statistics for fathers were actually not from Christians necessarily, from the secular, because the stats don't lie. So I just wanted to read real quick. Fathers are big pillars in a child's emotional development. They say little kids, when they're growing up, look to their fathers to lay down guy who's going to set the standard, set the children want to make their fathers proud. Children that have fathers that are involved, it promotes inner growth and strength. Studies have shown that when fathers are affectionate and supportive, it greatly affects their cognitive and social development and instills an overall sense of well-being and self-confidence. And I saw that, when I was little kids, the kids that came from strong, rock-solid families, it was like you just can't believe the world of difference that it makes in their personality and the way that they approach life. Um, Fathers set the bar for relationships. Kids see how dads work with other people and how they handle things in work or whatever, and it sets the pattern for how that they treat other people and how they relate with other people. Girls to be like a father that's loving and gentle. His daughter will look for those qualities in a man when she's old enough. Same with sons. Now, like with boys, they're looking at their dad as the character to model themselves after. Boys seek approval from their dads at a very young age. Um, as human beings, we grow up to be imitators of the behavior around us. I know Jack all the time. He says, "Is that right? Is that right? Is that right, Dad?" you know, it's funny. So that was just something that stuck out to me. This is coming from pediatric doctors put this together about the importance of having a dad in your life. The other on the flip side of this, in our world today, one of the things that we see so much of is the attack on, what was that, right? Yeah, it's about 2 weeks ago. And I found this paper that I wrote in college, and I was taking this women's studies course. And this was a course that I had to take to graduate from my major. And it was taught by this professor that was extremely liberal, whatever you want to say. So we had to write this paper in our class on a TV show, okay, and something about how it related to the family or whatever. So I wrote and I used the show The Middle. because it's a light, funny show, but it's depicting a traditional two-parent household, which is not the norm anymore. It's not what they want you to think is like the right way to be. TV shows, they depict the dad as this like bumbling buffoon. You think of shows that are funny that you've watched over the years, like Everybody Loves Raymond or whatever King of Queens that we liked, but they show this dad as this just kind of fumbling idiot, and he's just a goof, and mom has to take care of everything, and he's not that strong leader type. And and you think about like the shows that were on TV, even 50s, 60s, 70s, where it was the dad was this pillar of you know moral fortitude and character. Ben Cartwright from Bonanza. I mean, that's a dad right there. When I think of like my grandpa, I think of like Ben Cartwright. Just a stoic man. Or like Little House on the Prairie. You know, and the Ingalls. He was this moral guy, and the Andy Griffith Show, and you could go on and on about the way that society, not just Christian people, but society in general, looked that best for the family, and now it's more we're wondering if they know anything at all, and that's just a constant indoctrination that we get. Even like the shows, some of the shows that like we watched when we were kids on the Disney Channel, where like this, what was that Sweet Life show that they used to have, we used to watch, or whatever, the twins, and it's like the kids are the smart ones and they're always figuring out the problems, and the parents are just these goofs day in and day out. Mom and dad don't know anything. What do they know? And that's kind of what the world is pushing, have gone the other way. So what we need to do as Christian people is that we need to walk in such a way that we are a proof that this is the model, right? I see it constantly in my own life by just living in a way that I was raised. I look around at what I have and all of the blessings that I have, and my job and my house and my family. And that's from making a lifetime of good decisions. People will say, they'll look at somebody's life sometimes and they'll say, wow, man, that must be nice. He just fell backwards into good. But what they fail to realize is that was maybe 20 years of sacrifice and good decisions that it took to get to that position of, denying fun right now or whatever it may be. So that's what we need to be as a model as dads. So the first thing as dads, we are to provide and to protect. So that first line up there is something that Olivia has said. Why do you work, Daddy? And before school or before work a few times, because I say, well, I just got to. And Liv's like, no, Dad, you have to go to work. And I'm like, why, Liv? Why? And she's like, because you have to. You have to. I said, but why? And she's like, I don't know. You just have to. She's like, I think because of money. And that's right. So let's open up here to 1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 8. 1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 8. So here he's talking about just some things, some behaviors for, he's talking about elders, mothers, widows, and he gets down into verse 8 and he says, but if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own household, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. Okay, so that's a pretty powerful sentence there. Basically, the number one thing that you need to be doing for the people in your household is providing for them. Okay, so today, we're not going out and trading and bartering and all these different things, most of us. So in today's time, most of our provision is from a monetary standpoint. So why do I go to work? I go to, one of the things that I've found since having kids is that children provide you with a passion and a drive that you don't have before you have kids. It is just unbelievable. And your job, it's like when I first started working, I liked what I did, and I wanted to do good. I want to please the boss and then do the right thing. But you have kids, and when you get into a difficult situation or um, a frustrating situation or a time where you're just not, your mind is going opposite of wanting to be at work, all you got to do is pull up that phone screen and look at those little faces, and you're like, I got this. It's not that bad. I'll get it done. So that's one thing that kids are a blessing. They don't realize. They just look at, dad just going off to work every day to make money for us. But it goes beyond that. For the dad, it those kids are providing him a whole sense of, no matter what, no matter how bad this day gets, there's a reason behind what I'm doing. But on the other hand, job performance and doing well at your job and providing for your family is so important for dads, so that you can take care of them the best you can. I've always looked at what I went through and all that hard work that I spent in college as a security blanket. So, and I'm not saying that I'm the model for everybody else or anything like that, but happen ever, I'll be okay. If I was to lose my job tomorrow at Morse, like when Cold War closed, I have that security net. So that's part of us providing for our family, is not, taking those big major risks, but risks go against the security of providing for your family. Sometimes you can't step out of that security zone because you got people counting on you, right? Um, when I was the last year I worked at Coal4, there was a guy that worked there with me, Dave Showalter. Brandon knows him. He's another engineer that we worked with, older guy, and he was in his last year retiring. And he said something to me that just stuck with me. And he said, "Work to live, don't live to work." So what he meant by that was, this is not a hobby. This is where you go to make money for your family. This is not a place that doing all this work, and it can be fun. We get into a big project and you're working on it and you get all this camaraderie with these guys, and you can kind of get sucked into that workaholic mentality. I used to be like that more. But you realize that there's more important things. And once the money's made and the paycheck's earned, there's people at home that are more important than any job. I used to get a lot of sense of who I was from my job, and I've tried to push away from that a little bit. Um, the last thing, though, that's important to teach kids is to provide for them, but don't spoil them. Rachel and I, we could get our kids anything they could ever want. The right thing to do? Absolutely not. For kids to understand to wait for things and to work hard for things and to put off and to sacrifice. And the stray cat, because they said you can't get rid of a stray cat and you can't kill a weed. They're like, you just can't take those Kimbels out. They're just too hardy. But we learned that from our parents growing up, that you don't need everything right now. I went to school with a lot of guys that put everything on student loans, and they didn't really have a job through school, and they kind of, to me, took the easier path. But then I look at where I'm at now versus where they're at now, and we're in two totally different situations. And that's kind of stuff that I learned from my parents growing up. One of the things I do with the kids constantly is I will take them outside with me and have them watch me change my oil or work on this or fix that. And I'm not showing them in detail of like, this is what you do. They're too little to even understand that kind of stuff. But what they're seeing is, dad didn't pay for somebody to do that. He figured out how to do it on his own, to take care of these things that I could do someday. And I'm not, necessarily saying, oh, steps A, B, and C, because like a lot of the stuff I learned to do that I know how to do now, I didn't learn directly how to do from dad, but I saw him do it, and I saw grandpa, I saw Uncle Harold do it, and could they have spent the money and paid for it in a lot of ways? Probably. But is that the right thing to do? No, because then they could take some of that money and use it for something better, for the church or for helping out kids at the school. Or, I don't know how many different kids mom and dad have helped out over the years, and they had that extra money because dad was doing the alternator out in the garage instead of taking it into the shop and spending thousands of dollars, right? So those are the kind of things that we need to be teaching our kids. So let's jump over here real quick to Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 21. Matthew chapter 6 and verses 19 through 21. It says, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor dust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break nor steal. For where your treasure is, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So the last sentence there, and this is Christ speaking here. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So he says, your treasure is not in things of this corrupt rust. So if that's where your treasure is, that's where your heart will be. So we need money. We got to have it. We got to be able to pay our bills and take care of put gas in our car. And our goal should be to build a solid foundation of family and trust and close-knitness within our family. People that are working together as a family unit and always putting God at the central forefront. And that's something that we really try to do with our kids as much as we can is just bring up things about God. Now they're too little to really understand. Olivia's getting fold their little paws, I call them, folding that over and over, and a repetition of understanding that this is important. And protecting for your family is a number one thing that you need to be doing from a money standpoint, from a clothes and food and everything else standpoint, but also teaching lessons when it comes to providing and money and work and all those different things. So right here at the end, I put it in quotes. It's hard to read. Well, this is an old country song. Anybody knows me knows I like my country songs. He said when I was talking to him at the hospital, he said, "You can't buy that, son." We were talking about our family. And it says, "Daddy never was the Cadillac kind. He said some things just glitter and shine. He taught us that love was the one thing money couldn't buy. Daddy never was the Cadillac kind." So there again, love is the one thing you can't put a dollar on. So next, the other thing that we need to be for our kids is a leader and a teacher. Now I understand a lot of my message today is more of for like dads with little kids, but this still applies to dads that don't have little kids too. Be your child's first teacher. Proverbs 22 and verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Pretty powerful. Just the importance of those lasting life lessons that you teach to your kids, and more importantly, understanding salvation and spiritual things that will stick with them for a lifetime. No matter where you go, if you there's a lot of people that get up, grow away because of jobs and different things, and they move to another state or they move here or there, and they're not with your mom and dad, or things that stick with you for the rest of your life. So very important at a very young age to constantly be instilling that Jesus and God and Christ salvation is important. And as they get older, start actually giving them more and more meat. When we were going through school, we used to go to Coach by Christ, and we had a great time doing that all those years. Most of us that went here as kids in this church, we started learning stuff when we were very, very young. Um, we would visit other churches from time to time, and some of the kids, they were still on the ABCs, and we were into the algebra, which was never, say enough thanks to all of the people that put their time and energy into that for us when we were growing up. But it's our responsibility to train our child in the way he should go. Kids have a lot, I was fortunate enough to go to a pretty small conservative school that, for the most part, a lot of the teachers and stuff aligned more with what I believed, or what, we would believe, as far as, not so secular and against biblical. But it's not that way everywhere, and it's getting less and less that way anywhere you go, where the schools are pushing philosophies that are very, very, education is key for kids to be able to succeed in life. But that is not where, but you, Dad. Kids learn a lot of things. They're little sponges, and they can store knowledge real fast. So you got to be careful where that knowledge is coming from, and make sure that it's a strong message from you. Teaching salvation and a relationship with God is the number one priority. That I've always said, when Olivia was born, when Rachel and I have talked about parents and what their role is, to me, the number one, get them saved, teach them that there's an importance in having a relationship with God and Christ, and understanding exactly what salvation is. Christ died on that cross for your sins. He was buried and rose again the third day. And if you put your faith and trust in that you will have them. That knowledge and foundation, they will be above every other person as far as success goes. They do. The second one is to teach what I said in the previous slide about take care of you is you. And at the end of the day, you have to be able to, when you get to be an adult, be able to step away from your parents and take care of yourself. Kid, and I learned that there's really nothing that you can't figure out if you just put a little time and energy and effort into it. I have a guy that works and constantly, and it has nothing to do with his education. It has nothing to do with his ability. It has everything to do with his attitude and his effort. He has, you can teach that to your kid, that will just absolutely carry them through the rest of their lives, because it doesn't matter what you know or what you can do, your skill set. But if you just have a good effort and a great attitude, there's people looking to get you on their team. So, and that applies to, things in church and your work and your school and your job, wherever you're at. That will just be like a steamroller to get stuff done, So with those two things, I mean, you really can't go wrong. And then in football, you'd get these one or two kids that you could tell that they'd been allowed to do whatever they wanted their entire lives. They never had a lick of discipline. And the respect level just wasn't demanded that. It was like they didn't know what to do. But we worked with a lot of them, and you could tell that quite a few of those kids were craving it, actually, especially some of those young boys. They were craving having somebody to give them some structure and to put your foot down once in a while, because they were testing you. And I had a couple of them thank me a few times for it. My next door neighbor came up to me, was like just night and day with that kid. Because you've understood. Let's open up Second Corinthians chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. Others epistles of condemnation to you, or letters of condemnation from you, Ye are epistle written in our hearts, known and read of all men. For as much as ye are manifestly declared to be the epistle of Christ, ministered by us, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not in tables of stone, but in fleshy tables of heart. And such trust we have through Christ to Godwards. Not that we are sufficient of our testimony. Um, we are an epistle written on our hearts, a letter for everyone that's around us to read. It says, read by all men. So this is that's the importance of that is to provide a they're watching you. You have to be an example to them. So they can learn from your example. They're going to learn from your example, whether it's good or whether it's bad. They're going to learn from that. And one of the things I struggle with is, in my mind, I told them to quit doing that 15 times because, like I said, that's an example just as much as doing the right thing. They're going to see that. Let's jump over real quick. I just have a couple I want to run through. Titus chapter 2 and verse 1. Titus chapter 2, verses 1 through 7. But speak thou the things which become sound doctrine, that aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity and patience, aged women likewise, that they be behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, in all things showing thyself a pattern of good works, in doctrine showing uncorruptness, gravity, sincerity, sound speech that cannot be condemned, that he that is of the contrary part may be ashamed, having no evil thing to say of you. Again, talking about an example, so that people can look at you and look at your life and say either good or bad. And a lot of that comes down to rep 32. So I'm really just starting to get established in life. And, I've been working for about 10 years now. And one of the things that I've said, like around East Canton, is if you hear Kimbel, it's a good name. It's a solid name. There's names I hear, Van Voris in East Canton, or whatever, different names that you hear and you think a good connotation. And there's other names you hear and you go, ooh, is that a good connotation? So by that, powerful, the way that your reputation and the way you carry yourself and the things that you do matter. And the way you apologize for the bad things that you do matter. There's a few times I've had to swallow my pride and just say, look, I screwed up. I'm sorry about the way teaching those things and seeing that example, and being in a household like that is very powerful for the way that they will go out and live their lives. Let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 6. In Deuteronomy, I think it's chapter 8. Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verses 6 through 9. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. Thou shalt write them upon the posts of thy house and on thy gates. So, uh, he's giving instruction here about the testaments or the commandments, and saying that they should be talking about them unto thy children. They talk about them when they're sitting. They talk about them when they're walking. They talk about them when they're lying down and when they rise up, so when they're awake. And to me, that's important. It just goes along with the whole idea of being an example, but it even goes beyond that. Spending time with your kids and showing them a good time. Me and Dad went to the tractor pulls with Jack like last Saturday, and I was like, I don't know if I really want to drive all the way up there. it's an hour drive up. We were only going to be able to be there for an hour, and then we had to come right back. But I was like, you know what? I want to do this. Spending time with them, you're also constantly, if we're always talking about good things and talking about God and talking about church, it says to do it when you're walking, when you're talking, when you're sitting, when you're lying down. They remember that. It says that they should write them upon the posts of thy house, and the typical middle class decorating style. I mean, women are good at making the house look all good. If it was up to me, there'd be like deer heads and cow skulls and such. But Rachel's got her little different signs with verses on them. And I remember Mom had a one at the bottom of the stairs. It was the fruits of the Spirit. She'd make us look at it when we were being bad. And on the gates, we don't have any gates, but they're on the doorways and in the bathroom, on the walls. And Grandma had them, and it was just like it was everywhere you went. There's one right there up there on the wall. I could see that being in our hallway. But that's important. It's not just pretty to look at, but it soaks in. So let's jump back over real quick. Two more verses. I'm sorry. Proverbs chapter 13. And you don't have to turn there. These are quick verses. I'll just read them. Proverbs 13:24. It says, "He that son, but he that loveth him chaseth him betimes. Spare the rod, spoil the child." You've heard that over and over. But that's a true thing. Way, discipline in a loving way. Teaching kids that, like I said, that consequences for actions are real, that they matter, that they can't do what they want when they want all the time. And that will carry throughout the rest of your life, because you get out there in the world as an adult, every decision that you make has a negative or consequence, and consequences ahead of time, and then still doing something against, what you should have done is going to, for lack of better words, it's going to warm up your backside. That's what a spanking is, right? So when it's needed, it's important. Done in anger, and I've had to work on that. It's something that's done in love and instruction. Ephesians chapter 6. Let's read that real quick. Last verse. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. "And you fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in nurture and admonish of the Lord." Provoke not your children to wrath. Don't expect perfection from your kids. They'll get frustrated. You'll get frustrated, and nobody will be having fun. That's not the way to go about things. Kids are kids. They're going to make mistakes and they're going to make messes. And sometimes you got to work with them and help them and teach them, and not expect everything to be right from the first go around. So I wanted to go ahead and show. This is a clip from the TV show, The Andy Griffith Show. And in this clip, there's this hobo or drifter, whatever you want to call him, that comes into their and Opie's drawn to him right away. And this guy's not living right. And, he steals and all these different things. And this message, basically, what he says is that, kids, they need their parents to say, "Listen to me, trust me, I know what's best for you," because everything out there in the world is shiny and glittery, and it's packaged with all this prettiness that kids are sucked into and drawn to that might not be the best for them. So let's just go ahead real quick and I'll play this.
Well, Sheriff, Connor, where's Opie? He's in school. Bring him someone to sit down. Making a new fish blower, right? Get that on hand, Opie. Yeah, he showed it to me. He told me about the chicken dinner. The license number. You understand all that dust? Won't run over the pie. Pie was the pie. Well, that's not why I'm here. Good. It's about Opie. Something wrong? Yeah, there's something wrong. You ate too much? No, it goes a little deeper than that. wrong with his thinking. He's gotten a little twisted on things like being able to tell the difference between right and wrong. Not that that's an easy thing. A lot of grown-ups still struggling with that same problem. It's especially difficult for a youngster. Those things rub easy. That would seem to be the case. I live by my wits. I'm not above bending the law now and then. Keep clothes on my back, food in my stomach. I live the kind of life that other people would just love to live if they only had the courage. Who's to say that the boy have your way from mine? Why not let him decide? Now, I'm afraid it don't work that way. You can't help. He'll grab at the first flashy thing with shiny ribbons on. And when he finds out there's a hook in it, it's too late. Wrong ideas come packaged with so much glitter, it's hard to convince him that other things might be better in the long run. All a parent can do is say, wait, trust me. That means that you're... That's right. Well, you're wearing a badge, so I'll leave. What's so difficult? Your problem solved. That's where you're wrong. That boy thinks just about everything you do is perfect. Again, an awful lot of unscrambling to be done. I look for today.
So did you understand the message there? That, kids, they're barrage today's take a bad, truly Satan at work, a bad message for kids or something that's going to hurt them and package it up with all this shininess and glitter and ribbons and they say, oh boy, that looks great. And Rachel and I have even said on some of these TV shows, we have to watch what are they actually they're sucked in. They don't realize they got a hook in it. That's what he said there. So it comes packaged with so much glitter. How many times do you see that happen with kids that don't have proper guidance from their parents? Something from the world that looks fun and looks good, all of a sudden they're too far into it to even get back out. It sucks them right in. But that's where, we have to say to our kids, listen, we know more than you. We've been there. And I was just living at home, feels like last year. And I remember sometimes thinking, they don't know nothing. They're old school. I know more than them, but that's part of being a kid. But you got to understand, your parents have been there. They've seen it. The world is not that much different. All the same bad stuff that was happening now was happening back then too. And, that comes all these different things, being an example and the constant teaching builds that trust with your kids that maybe my mom and dad do know something. Maybe I should wait and listen and hear them out. I got a little high tech there, but I hope it helped bring that message home. So 1 Chronicles 16 and verse 11, 1 Chronicles. This is a verse about prayer. Sorry guys, struggling here. 1 Chronicles 16, verse 11. Seek the Lord and his strength. Seek his face continually. Remember his marvelous works that he hath done, his wonders, and the judgments of, O ye seed of Israel, his servant, ye children of Jacob, his chosen ones. He is the Lord our God. His judgments are in all the earth. Be ye mindful always of his covenant, the word which he commended to 1,000 generations. This is just a message of prayer. We should be helpers and encouragers of our kids, but we don't know it all. When we were little, we thought my dad knew everything. We thought he knew everything. My kids are the same way, but truly the fact is you don't as a parent. But that's where you have to get into the word, seek help from others, seek help from your dad if he's around, seek help from your grandpa if he's around. continually seek the Lord for answers and how to deal with your family. Then let's jump over one to chapter 29, a couple pages. Chapter 29 and verses 18 through 20. O Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, our fathers, keep this forever in the imagination of the thoughts and the hearts of thy people, and prepare their heart unto thee. And give unto Solomon my son a perfect heart to keep thy commandments, thy testimonies, and thy statutes, and to do all these things, and to build the palace for the which I have made provision. So this is David here talking, King David, and he's praying for his son Solomon. Praying for your kids is so important. A lot of times typically it's about when I'm turning from Trump onto Route 30 to go to work is when I'm like, well, I guess there's no turning back now. I'm going to be gone for the day. But that's usually when I think about the kids, because I see them right before I leave. They always get up, and I just, say just a quick little prayer. I don't, I talk out loud, or I don't really say anything, but it's just, just pray that everything's okay with them today, and that they have a great day, and that, they can grow and mature and be good kids. And just, I think about them constantly. Colossians 3:21. This is another example of having patience. Colossians chapter 3. Man. Colossians chapter 3 and verse 21. Fathers, provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged. Again, another example of having patience, not discouraging your kids, having understanding, not expecting perfection from them. Now, that's different than discipline and demanding that kids have consequences for the things that they do wrong. But kids are kids, like I said. They're going to spill their milk on the table. Seems like every night. They're going to, do whatever. Jack is a patient trier like I've never seen. Olivia, she's that like people pleasing, just want to do it right all the time. Where Jack, he's sometimes wants to take his own route, and that's okay. Try to help him out as much as I can, and just never discourage him from learning. He told me this morning, I wasn't talking about it, but he said, I'm going to be a Hornet. I was like, that's cool, man. Gold and blue. I was a Hornet too. He got all excited, Rachel must have been talking to him about being a Hornet or something. Wasn't me. Luke, let's turn over to Luke chapter 15. I already went over, didn't I, guys? I'm sorry. I didn't realize what time it was. We'll read this last verse, and we'll move on. I apologize. Luke 15:20 through 24. Then drew near unto him all the publicans and sinners for to hear him, and the Pharisees and scribes. Nope. I'm sorry. I'm reading the wrong thing. Oh, verse 20, sorry. And he arose and came to his father, but when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, Bring forth the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet. And bring hither the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to be merry. That's the story Jesus telling about the prodigal son. So the whole idea here is that don't give up on your kids. You're always going to love them. You're always going to be there for them, even if they stray. Be there with open arms when they decide to come back. Um, it being a parent, being a dad is unconditional, never-ending love. Um, let's see. The last thing, enjoy the time with your family. Make time for the little ones because they're only little for so long. I think about the fact that next year I'll have been graduated from college for 10 years, which is just crazy to think about. So you think about how fast 5 or 10 years goes by, and your kids, when they're little, that time from 0 to 5, like Olivia's starting to seem so big to me. From even 0 to 10, it's like they stop being a little kid. It's you the messes, embrace it. I know it can be a struggle, you know, but just remember that this is a short time in your life and just enjoy it. That's one of the best things you can do as a dad is just to have fun with your kids and enjoy them. That's why you have them. So I just want to go ahead and close us in prayer today. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much, Lord, for all the wonderful fathers that I've been able to know in my life, all the men in this assembly that I've looked up to my entire life, and all the wonderful examples that you provide in your word, Lord, for how we are supposed to live. We just hope that you can help us every day to live up to those standards and to always be trying to further spread your word, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, we got to